So now we're going to be looking at a few examples that talk about our graphing from vertex form. The first one, though, is a little bit of review. It says determine if the following quadratics open up or down, have a max or min, and what the range is. Okay, so looking at this first one, I know that my A value is a positive 1/3. So my A value is 1/3. Okay, and it's positive. That right there tells us a lot of information. Since my A value is positive, a rough sketch, I know it's going to look like this. Okay, so since my graph is going to be looking like that, it's going to open up. Okay. The vertex is at the very bottom, so therefore it has a minimum value. Okay. And I know when I'm talking about the range, okay, we're talking about all the pieces of the graph that are above the vertex. Since they're above, it's going to be y is greater than or equal to the vertex. Now remember, to find the vertex, that's where you have to use form. We have to use x is equal to negative b over 2a. We're not going to do that right now, just because I really just wanted to focus on that we know this little bit of information. This is important so that we can be checking our work while we're graphing, because you know if you have a positive a value, your graph should open up. So that's a great way to be checking our work. All right, looking at the second one. Okay. Here we have a negative in front for our a value, so that means we have an a value of a -1. Since our a value is negative, this one's basically the opposite of this first one that we had. Okay, so that means that rough sketch, our graph's going to look like this. That means it opens down. The vertex is at the very top, so that means it has a max value. And for the range, we're talking about all the y values less than the vertex. So it's going to be y is less than or equal to. And we actually know what our y value of the vertex is just by looking at it. So y is less than or equal to -5. All right. If you have questions on the a value stuff, just let me know. Looking at number 2. Okay, we are fill in the following chart with the correct value. So I want you to go ahead and look at this graph right here. Okay, and I want you to fill in all this information surrounding that graph. Okay, that's what we really did on the very first day. So finding the vertex, the axis symmetry, all that stuff. So I want you to go ahead and do that now, and then you can check your work with mine when you're finished. All right, I hope you tried that one on your own. If you look at this, the vertex is 1, -4. That vertex right there tells us all this information because there's my vertex. Okay, we know the axis of symmetry is just the x value, so x is equal to 1. The vertex is at the very bottom of the graph, so we know it's a minimum of, well, it hit the y-axis at the 4, so min of 4 at x is equal to 1. The domain is still all real numbers. Since my graph opens up, okay, we know the range is y is greater than or equal to, because we're talking about all the y values above the vertex. It's going to be greater than or equal to the y value, which is -4. And we're already talking about the opening direction. Well, we know that it opens up. Okay, so that's what you should have gotten for all of that information. So now we can find that same exact information from our vertex form equation. Okay, because we know how to find our vertex from this now. Okay, it's just our h and our k. Well, h lies and k tells the truth. Okay, so we're going to do the opposite of what h is. So 1, -4. Okay, so that's my vertex right there. Well, the axis of symmetry is just the x value of the vertex. Okay, so it's going to be x is equal to 1. Now, for some of these other ones, I have to remember this a value, okay? Just like what we did up top on those notes. My a value is -2. Since it's a negative, that means it's going to look like this. It's going to open down, okay? Just like we talked about. Where is it at? Just like we talked about up here, okay? So since my graph opens down, that means the vertex is at the very top. So since my vertex is at the top, I know that's a max value. So a max of -4 at x is equal to 1. The domain, though, is still the same, all real numbers. Since my graph opens down, my range is going to be y is less than or equal to, because it's everything below the vertex, and it's less than or equal to -4. And since we just said it opens down, we know the opening direction is down. All right, so now let's list which ones were the same or different. Okay, the only ones that were the same were the vertex, the axis of symmetry, and my domain. Everything else was different. Okay, so we had our vertex, axis of symmetry, and the domain. And the things that were different were the max or min value, the opening direction, and the range. All right, so looking at the next page, it says find the vertex of the following quadratics. So this first one is in standard form. Okay, so we have x is equal to -b/2a to find our vertex. Well, we know that there's not an x right here, so that means our b value is going to be equal to 0. There's nothing there to use for our b value, so we can use a 0 for that. So it's going to be 0/2 times my a value over here is a 1. So I'll have 0/2, which 0 divided by 2 is just 0. So then we would need to plug that back in. And we'll have y is equal to 0 squared minus 12. Well, 0 squared is just 0, and 0 minus 12 just gives me -12. So my vertex is going to be 0, -12. All right, so that's the vertex for this one. The next one's in vertex form, so that means it's super easy to find, which is always exciting. We know that we just look at the h and the k values. Well, h lies and k tells the truth. So instead of a -5, now we're going to have a +5, 3. That's all you needed for that one. So now we want to know what are the axes of symmetry for both of those functions. We always look at the x value. So this one's going to be x is equal to 0. And here are the x values of 5, so x is equal to 5. All right, if you have questions about either of those, just let me know. Number 4 and 5 are a little bit of review, just to kind of make sure we're not forgetting anything, because guess what? You're going to have a final after Christmas break that has some of these things on there. Okay, so the first one, this is our power to a power property, if you remember that, where we know that the exponent is on the outside, so we have to multiply all of our exponents by that 2. So 2 times 2 will give me 3 to the 4th. 5 times 2 will give me x to the 10th. Well, 3 to the 4th is just 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, which will give me 81 x to the 10th. So that's for that one. If you can't remember that stuff, just let me know. I can help step you through that a little bit slower. And then the last one is a little bit review as well from Unit 4, because I know we all loved Unit 4 so much. Okay, so my slope for this is always the number in front of the x value. So it's going to be m is -1/2. So since it's negative, we know the line has to go down. And then the y-intercept, we have to use this 2, so it's going to be 0, 2. So we're going to start at 0, 2. My slope is -1/2, so I'm going to go down 1 and over 2. Down 1 and over 2. And then connect those in a nice straight line with arrows. Not very straight, but that's okay. All right, so if you have any questions about any of these, just let me know. If not, move on to your homework.